Hey, this is Zachlog the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Nate
Indeed.
and Travis,
Hello.
and we are getting together tonight to discuss the next section of Horatius at the Bridge. And unfortunately, off the top of my head, I do not remember the stanza numbers.
It's
The
26 to 34.
Okay, there we go. Stanzas 26 to 34. Which is, I think, this is my favorite part of the poem, and it is, I think, one of the best martial speeches in literature. So, in my humble opinion. Um, Nate has volunteered to read the poem for us tonight or the excerpt, I guess to be technical, not the whole poem. And before we get to that, I did want to say, if you like my work, if you would like to help support my channel, you can go to subscribestar.com/Zachlog-the-great and sign up to support me there for between $1 and $5 a month. And anyway, having said that, I am going to put the poem up on the screen. Gonna close out the images of the planet Saturn, which are not what we need. Where are we going?
By Saturn's
Almost.
poles.
Almost there. Oh, there we go. So here we go. All right, and I'll put up on the screen, and Nate, you can tell us when you are ready.
I'm going to start at stanza 24.
Okay.
Previously on Horatius. Lars Porsena gathers his troops to come against this town of Rome. Will they be able to stand? Will the Tuscans overrun the bridge? They've arrived. The bridge is under attack by its own engineers. But will they succeed? Join us at stanza 24, which reads thusly. Fast by the royal standard, o'erlooking all the war, Lars Porsena of Clusium sat in his ivory car. By the right wheel rode Mamilius, the prince of Latian name. By the left, false Sextus, who wrought the deed of shame. But when the face of Sextus was seen among the foes, a yell that rent the firmament from all the town arose. And on the housetops was no woman, but spat toward him and hissed. No child, but screamed out curses and shook its little fist. But the consul's brow was sad, and the consul's speech was low. And darkly looked he at the wall, and darkly at the foe. Their van will be upon us before the bridge goes down. And if they once may win the bridge, what hope to save the town? Then out spake brave Horatius, the captain of the gate. To every man upon this earth death cometh soon or late. And how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods, and for the tender mother who dandled him to rest, and for the wife who nurses his baby at her breast, and for the holy maidens who feed the eternal flame, to save them from false Sextus that wrought the deed of shame. Hew down the bridge, Sir Consul, with all the speed ye may. I, with 2 more to help me, will hold the foe in play. In yon straight path 1,000 may well be stopped by 3. Now who will stand on either hand and keep the bridge with me? Then out spake Spurius Lartius, a Ramnian proud he was he. Lo, I will stand at thy right hand and keep the bridge with thee. And out spake strong Herminius, of Titian blood was he. I will abide by thy left side and keep the bridge with thee. Horatius, quotes the consul, as thou sayest, so let it be. and straight against that great array forth went the dauntless three. The Romans in Rome's quarrel spared neither land nor gold, nor son nor wife, nor limb nor life in the brave days of old. Then none was for a party, then all were for the state. Then the great man helped the poor, and the poor man loved the great. Then lands were fairly portioned, then spoils were fairly sold. The Romans were like brothers in the brave days of old. Now Roman is to Roman more hateful than a foe, and the tribunes beard the high, and the fathers grind the low. As we wax hot in faction, in battle we wax cold. Wherefore men fought not as they fought in the brave days of old. Now while the three were tightening their harnesses on their backs, the consul was the foremost man to take in hand an axe. And fathers mixed with commons seized hatchet, bar, and crow, and smote upon the planks above, loosed the props below.
Okay. Thank you.
Will they drop the bridge in time? Will the Tuscans take the town? What will become of Horatius and his brave comrades? Find out next time on Horatius, at and possibly under the bridge.
I am going to hand it off to Travis in just a moment. I will say before that quickly, however, I feel sad for that poor crow that they were smashing, that they were working on the bridge with. I mean, a hatchet and a bar, like, that makes sense, but what is this bird gonna do? Like, he's just, like, swinging away with this bird. It doesn't...
Desperation, man. It's a hell of a thing.
Okay.
They're trying to put ill omen on it so it would fall down on its own.
Travis.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to cough and I'll be right back. All right. I'm back. I'm ready. So I think I brought this up last week, and I think you probably explained it away, and I don't remember what the explanation was. But still, as I read this, I can't help thinking like a planner, because that's what I am. And I can't help wondering how the army got so close without them realizing. I mean, it wasn't like they were trying to hide their approach. It would have been days and weeks in the makings. So there's that. And then there's kind of like, you wonder, when they build a bridge like this, and they know that, you know, the city is going to be attacked, because that's what happens at this time in the world. Your city is always going to be attacked. Did they think out, when they built the bridge, the quickest way to be able to knock it down, I wonder? You know, so that you could just go and knock like 4 pins out and it would fall down. So those were a couple of thoughts I had, and of a less poetic nature, more of a failing to suspend disbelief side of things, I suppose.
Well, what I gather is that they weren't expecting the hill that defended the bridge to fall as quickly as it did. They're expecting to maybe have a pitched battle on it, but it just kind of got overrun before they were ready. Because homeboy with the 4-fold shield and the really big sword just kind of went in there and cranked everybody off the top of it.
Okay, so it wasn't like they just showed up. There was a battle beforehand that went a less desirable way.
They talked about it.
Geniculum.
Yeah.
Where is this? Let me...
Short time was there, ye well may guess, from using or debate. Outspake the consul roundly. The bridge must straight go down, for since Geniculum is lost, naught else can save the town. So they were hoping they could defend the hill. But homeboy, what is it? Verbena Aster
hath stormed Geniculum, and the stout guards are slain. I mean, maybe if the guards didn't have quite as many donuts, and they were not quite so stout, that would have helped too.
I mean, they also got, so they also had to fight old Big Aster.
Um, Bad Esther.
Yeah.
So for by the way, for any listeners who are not quite so up on somewhat archaic English, stout, in addition to meaning having some extra poundage, can sometimes mean courageous, and what would be
here in the South, here in the Deep South, we still use stout in its original intent, which is to mean hefty and strong. A stout timber, a stout stick. That is a stout.
So yes. So they're not saying the guards were fat. They're saying they were strong, courageous, and apparently not in this case quite up to the task of dealing with Aster. However, anyway, but yeah, this part is actually kind of if you have not guessed, my favorite part of the poem, because it kind of feels like much of what's coming before is how did this happen, and then what's coming afterwards is what happened, and this part is the why. Why is there this fight? Why are these three taking this position? And this is the part when I read this, I'm like, you know what? I have to cover this. I have to do this poem. And then I'm like, this poem is 600 lines long. That's a little more than I'm going to handle on a 2-week schedule. So what am I going to do? But yes, this is to me, kind of the core, the living heart of this poem. And to every man upon this earth, death cometh soon or late. You're gonna die. You're gonna make it mean something. How can man die better? And what else? What else is worth actually going to war for? Defending the ashes of your fathers and the temples of your gods, and your wife and child. Spreading democracy around the world. Doesn't really, in retrospect, that doesn't really seem to be such a great plan. But defending the. Go ahead.
But that's exactly what Rome did once they got big. They tried to spread democracy or empire or whatever. It's always the same battle cry: God and country, your brothers. It's always the same argument, really. I feel like. Whether democracy is your God, your philosophy, whatever.
I mean, that's what it's dressed up under, yeah. It's usually just about naked power.
Yeah, and that's what it's actually about, yes. That's what the war is actually about. But as far as the war speeches.
Yeah. All right, you young men, go out and die so I can be more blinging.
Well, I mean,
I don't want to.
I think it's effective. I mean, you're pointing out that death is going to come either way, so that's a nice thing to point out first. And then how can you die better than facing fearful odds?
Yeah. This is about the best case you could hope for as a warrior, is to be like, yeah, no, this is like my home is under assault. So, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's why the Russians haven't been able to roll over Ukraine. They're attacking people's homes. And when you say whatever you want about the relative governments, there's a whole discussion to be had there. I said it's the kind of fight that, is going to motivate people to get into it and get their back set because you've been invaded.
Well, and it's, even, Russia's cry is that they're taking the Ukraine because it is their country. It's a similar, land and country concept that they're claiming for the war.
So to return to something earlier, Travis said earlier, there is. I actually remember. I might even be able to find the book if I. Probably not doing it tonight, but in one of the books I have up here, one of the characters at some point, kind of thinks to himself, quote unquote heroism is often the result of poor planning leading into a crisis, and if you planned things out better in the first place, the heroism wouldn't be necessary at all. And there is at least sometimes there's a fair point in there. I mean, sometimes things happen that are genuinely out of your control, but sometimes you wouldn't need a hero if you had a little more forethought in the first place. So that is a legitimate question.
That's true as far as it goes, but at the same time, noted philosopher Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
And that's exactly it. Yeah, nothing ever goes the way you want it to. So, yeah, I mean, so both arguments are good. Like, yeah.
But yeah, generally you hope to do things so well that you only need men of indifferent courage and they can just take it over because, yes, we've planned everything to the nth degree, but it always comes down that there's some spiny bro on the other side who's like, no, I'm not letting this happen. And so then you got to have somebody to rise to meet his challenge.
But, well, and this kind of brings up, how is a hero made? I mean, just to go back to that, Mike Tyson's description, the guy that ends up being a hero is the guy that's had to take punches. Like, he has half a clue what it is to take a punch. He may not be the best fighter, but he knows what it is to take a beating at least, and that's the guy that ends up being the hero in a certain scenario because nobody else around him knows how to take a punch.
So, this is not something I have a lot of personal experience with myself, but I did remember this one guy. It's not what he's primarily known for, but he has been involved in martial arts and done some stuff there. And I asked him one time, like, so if a guy would have to choose one, would it be more important for him to learn to throw a punch or take a punch? He's like, learning how to take a punch. That's learning how to handle that and get yourself back together quickly. That's rather more important. I'm like, okay, that's interesting information.
I mean, do you want to be a sharp knife or a hard anvil,
Well, it's TV tropes. The different. There's the glass cannon who can deal out amazing amounts of damage but can't take a hit, and there's the wall who can take all kinds of damage but can't really do much to the enemy.
Yeah, you kind of want to find the middle of those two extremes, but if you have to find one side of the direct middle to stand on, probably go to the crunchy side. Be a bit harder.
But
cruiser.
So in that speech, the one thing I wondered about were these holy maidens feeding the eternal flame. Were these like virgins, like in the temple or something?
I don't know in detail, but yeah, I would get the impression that these were virgins dedicated to the service of blank god. And it's there's the term vessel virgins, and that's what it's talking about. So, and well, Sextus, well, we know what he's going to do when he gets to them. So,
yeah, I was like, dang, like he did it once, so clearly he's got a taste for it now. The weasel is tasting blood.
Yeah, and it's also so like I said, I absolutely love that speech. Also the part like in yon straight path 1,000 may well be stopped by 3, and it's just like we don't have to have an army, guys. We just have to have me and 2 of my bros. So who's the other 2 here?
So this,
I'm sorry. I see the name Spurious Lartius, and I'm like, I think of what it means now when something is spurious, and it's like it's suspicious. It's not. It's probably
spurious. Yeah, false or doubtful, fake. Yeah, that's
It's like, dang, dude, your name sucks. Good old
Evidently, it was, also, I think our Spurious is spelled a little differently. I don't know if it's at all related to his name. But, yes. But also, interesting to me is, like, the part after his speech and, kind of the narrator, philosophizing a little bit. Then none was for a party, then all were for the state. Then the great man helped the poor, and the poor man loved the great. And skip a little bit. Now Roman is to Roman more hateful than a foe, and the tribunes beard the high, and the fathers grind the low. And it kind of seems like from what I know of from what scattered bits of Roman history I know, it seems like he's kind of talking about kind of the late Roman Republic, when the wheels are kind of coming off of the system, and everyone sees the problems, but no one can. They can't actually get things together enough to address them. It's like, yes, we need to do this, but if we do, we need to fix this thing. But if we fix this thing, that will come at the cost of these people, who will all be angry, and we need their support to do this other thing. And
so we're just going to give out crack pipes in impoverished neighborhoods.
What was Young Democrats? Hey Biden, can we have free college and free healthcare? Biden, best I can do is free crack pipes for black people.
Not you guys.
But it also kind of seems like at the time of this, Rome was a city, and that was it was this city, and that was it. And then after this, Rome conquered and expanded, and as it grew larger and as it grew wealthier, it also developed factions, and power attracts, power and wealth will attract people, and it basically pulled in people who didn't necessarily feel any particular loyalty to the old ideas, and feel any particular loyalty to the people of Rome, and you can it's kind of a cycle, and so it's wealth. Well, and it's kind of the same thing, a little bit of the same thing you see in the Old Testament, over and over again. The Israel prospers, Israel gets becomes wealthy and arrogant, and kind of forget about the importance of being devoted to God. God says, "Guys, I'm here. Guys, whap, guys!" And Israel gets smacked around a bit until they become humble again. And kind of the story of the human race in general.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that he put that sort of aside stanza there, where he's talking about how Rome is now, whatever now may be referring to. It's kind of an interesting choice, instead of just sticking with the story of, it does give you the contrast, and it's saying, it's not like now. People were actually together. It feels a little bit like propaganda, his description of it previously. They're all selling the spoils, which I don't know what that means, because I thought you were supposed to share the spoils, but it's saying that they sold the spoils appropriately. It was the term. Where is that? I'm not sure.
Then lands were fairly portioned, then spoils were fairly sold. The Romans were like brothers in the brave days of old. Okay, spoils were fairly sold. Okay, well, for one thing, he's trying to rhyme. So
point.
that might be part of it. Another thing might be, let's say, Rome had some kind of conquest, had some kind of had some kind of triumph, came back with some kind of wealth. What would spoils were fairly sold might mean, well, it could, or rather, what would be the opposite of that might be, some, influential Roman says, hey, I'd sure like to get, blank thing at a bargain. And whoever's overseeing this says, yeah, sure, we'll cut off the bidding at such and such for you. And so I think that might, be a context where that makes sense.
It seems a little idealized. Everybody's getting along. The poor aren't moaning about the rich, and the rich aren't moaning about the poor, and they were all brothers back in the day. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't always get along with my brother, so it really doesn't quite add up quite the way it sounds.
You are pointing at a heroic ideal and, doing the thing that people love to do, which is the good old days were better.
Right.
Will we ever be as good as the ancient masters? Will we ever live up to the moral balance and character of our forebears? Or even our five? We had more bears than anyone else.
So two things. One, like brothers, you might say, I didn't always get along with my brothers, but at the same time, if someone else, like, you might fight with your brothers, but if someone else came in and started,
right. No, that's true.
Then they find out what it is, what why, what it means to have brothers. Someone else comes in and starts messing with him, and you're together all of a sudden. The other thing
versus my cousin, it's me versus my brother. Me and my brother versus my cousin. Me, my brother, and my cousin versus everyone else.
Which I think that's an Arabic saying, if I have it correct, which works in some contexts and doesn't work as well in others. Or rather, I guess the thing is, people who hold that view and people who don't hold that kind of view shouldn't mix too much. But right.
Yeah, crap kicked out by me, my brother, and my cousin.
What was I gonna? The other thing. This is something I've kind of thought about for a while. Like, if you look at old stories, the old myths, there was always this idea in a lot of the old stories that basically the people of the past were greater. Were mythically powerful, were more powerful, were more wise, and just better people than us in general. And then, sometime in the 20th century, that seems, or I think the 20th century, I don't really know, but that seems to have gotten turned around. And, the idea is, well, we're smarter and we're wiser and more powerful and just better people than the people of the past. Our ancestors didn't know what we know. We're smarter than them. Who cares about them?
Part of that's the pace of technological advancement. I mean, from the time we learned to fly to the time we got to the moon was like one long lifetime. It was like a person could have conceivably been born around the time the Wright brothers flew, and they would have seen Apollo 11. I mean, it's like 60, 70 years, something like that. So the pace of advancement, like from sort of the beginning of the 20th century to the end of it, is unbelievable. There's a picture of I believe it's a Confederate cavalry. Like he was a veteran of the Civil War standing next to a jet fighter. Or no, maybe he was a Rough Rider. No, I thought he was in the Civil War. Either way, it was like a crazy, sort of,
right.
juxtaposition of this guy is old as hell, and he was probably around before steam engines were the big thing. And now he's standing next to a no kidding, honest to God, jet fighter aircraft. And it's like, my God, this is insane. I mean, we've gone from no internet in my lifetime. We've gone from no civilian internet at all to I am saturated with internet signals in my person all day, every day. And I have a little despair rectangle in my pocket that can get onto it faster than the government's best technology could 20 years ago. So, yeah, people got a little full of themselves because instead of everybody being, tied to the land or at best working in a factory and being all kind of down on this low level and relatively ignorant, all of a sudden we're all educated. We're just still retarded.
Yes.
Now we get to be retarded instead of, crowding around in our hovels and our farmhouses, kind of dirty and unwashed. We sit here with electric lights and computers and get to sneer down on people who are better than us.
I'm washed. Just thought I should mention that.
Well, yeah, these days.
But yeah, I mean, technology, information. I mean, I think these are things that make us think that we are. I mean, we are more advanced technologically and information. I don't know that we're wiser. That's the part you really kind of want to not stumble over too hard.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever really, gone for the idea that humanity is progressing and we're better than the people of the past. I think for me, for a long time, it's been, people are people whenever and wherever you find them. Although I do have to say, like, sometime over the last several years, I've been slowly shifting more towards, no, we are the lesser children of greater men. I think I might be leaning more towards that these days. I don't know. Although, okay, I will say now thinking about it a little bit, part of that may also be the survivorship bias. Are you guys familiar with that idea?
No.
Yeah, the idea that only the best and greatest ideas or the deepest and worst evils made it through the filter of time, and now we're seeing all of it all the time.
Yeah, and it's like we, we look at, the only examples that you can of a particular thing that you can look around and see today are the ones that survived. But there were a lot of things that didn't make it this far. And so looking only at the ones that did make it this far might, can give you a kind of false picture of reality. Like for instance, sometimes people will say, well, yeah, pop music these days is, all this junk and it's terrible, but the music of X years ago was so much better. But then you're like, yeah, but the only music from that time that people hear about today is the ones that were actually good and that people, still listen to. There was a lot of absolute trash on the radio then too. It's just the trash has been filtered out by now.
Yeah, I read.
So,
going to reference another great coterie of great thinkers at cracked.com. We're talking about that same thing. And they're like, y'all want to know what the number one song was when it's like, after what was the top of the Billboard charts when Fortunate Son debuted? It was Sugar Sugar by the Archies. They're like, yep. And they were making the point we're just making. Like, people have been this stupid and venal and ridiculous forever. It's just now we get to hear all of it.
There's just more of it out there for us to see and hear.
Yeah, the ancient Romans didn't have TikTok.
But there's still very wise men today, and we're still making the same mistakes that we made 100 years ago.
It's just all the idiots have a better megaphone as well.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Obviously, the only people who should be on YouTube are people like me.
Yes, exactly.
Because I am smart and have good things to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not all these other idiots.
I am an idiot, but I'm occasionally amusing. So you figure it out.
I think that's a great way to go on the airwaves. If you go on the airwaves, with that attitude, you can't go too wrong.
But
rather than thinking that you're brilliant, and just being an idiot.
Well, to quote another noted philosopher, Alex Jones, who was going after Plato or some dude, look, I'm kind of retarded. Well, I know nothing.
That would be really nice to put those two next to each other. Plato, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. Alex Jones, look, I'm kind of retarded.
Oh, that's a meme. That's a meme.
Oh, okay. So that was that already exists. I don't need to make that. Okay.
It's glorious. We can just take a moment to savor the fact that is a thing that is in the world.
Okay.
Now, what I gotta say is I enjoy the console actually being useful instead of being like, oh no,
I thought the exact same thing.
They're gonna do a thing. He's just like, okay, they're gonna go fight. Hand me that axe, son.
Yes. Let's see. Where is that?
34. Now, while the three were tightening their harnesses on their backs, the consul was the foremost man to take in hand an axe. And so it's like, yeah, he's like, come on, boys, we got to chop this bridge down. Let's go.
Why did he just happen to have an axe lying around, though? Was he some kind of psycho?
I mean, they already knew they were going to have to take
right.
down.
They were already.
Like, oh gosh, what's going to happen if we can't take this thing down before the Tuscans cross it?
And and then there's someone else grabbed a hatchet, and someone else grabbed a bar, and then this poor sucker over here is like, I don't know, what am I gonna? Hey, there's a crow! Get over here! I'm sorry.
I mean, I thought it was interesting that he's, they're bringing up that point of the fathers mixed with commons, like he's tying in that idea of, the great and the small are on this thing together. Which, I mean, honestly, the consul didn't pick up a sword and go out there with Horatius, so.
Well, yeah, but they only needed 3 of them, and they needed 3 of the. They needed the 3 best fighters, and the consul, probably kind of an old man, may have a few battle scars of his own by this point. Probably, not. If we only need 3 people, leave that to the specialist. But everyone can start smashing the bridge supports here.
Which, actually, there should have been a little thought put into that, or else it was going to fall on the people working on it too. But yeah, hopefully they worked that part out. They may have just been casualties of war.
Well, I mean, and if they managed to, preserve their families and save the city, a lot of them would have said, well, I guess that's the price of it, and it's worth it. So
it's the way it goes in war.
Mm-hmm. So, let's see. I'm trying to think if I have anything more directly to pull off of this one, pull out of this part. Yeah, my gosh, Horatius's speech here is the best thing ever. And I actually made a standalone video talking about this because, when I'm working on a long poem, memorizing a long poem, I will sometimes listen to other people reciting it, other people, reading it to, help me get it down. And there are a few recordings of Horatius at the bridge on YouTube. And there are a couple of them that do it well, but most of them are really flat and just like, come on, guys, if you're gonna do this, put some spirit into it. Now, I will also say one of them is like a recitation from memory by a 12-year-old girl. Okay. That's fine. I'm not gonna go after you for this. But like, if you're going to the effort of recording this and putting this on YouTube, put some fire into it, man. Here, let me see. To every man upon this earth, death cometh soon or late. And how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? Like, put some heart into it.
Yep. I was like, I'm just keep going back to memes because they're fun. Saw another one that was, it's like, there are 2 ways men want to die. And one, it showed like, an old man with like, his old wrinkled wife is holding his hand and he's laying in a comfy bed. And there's, like, he has like, tall sons are around, and you can see they're kind of a little in their middle age. And then they have like little boys next to them and all that stuff. And then there's daughters around and all that stuff. And then the other one is like, a picture of like, Imperial Guardsmen from 40K with like Tyranids coming at him. And it's like, look, we're not going to make it out. We can hold them long enough. The civilians will escape. I'm just like, yeah, that's pretty much it. You either want to die, old, well-loved, and, used up, or you want to die expended in noble cause. Kind of boring. Or tragic.
So speaking of memes, do you see? Is that up yet, guys?
Yeah, it's up.
I see it.
I did that one. I I did that one a little bit ago because I guess you know what I should see. I've seen the tag a couple times ago. Classical memes where someone takes an image from like classical art and uses it as a meme template. So that would maybe I should put that on a forum like those. But let's see here. Stop screen sharing. Anyway, I don't know. I think I've said most of what I have to say about this one. Travis, how about you? Any last thoughts on this section of the poem?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and Nate.
Horatius is right. You're all going to die. Die well. And until you die, live well.
Okay, that sounds like a good note to close on for the evening. So thank you both for joining me, and to you and our audience, God be with you.
And a happy